Welcome to Tales of Hope, where every paw print counts. Animal tie in the house, spreading love, hear the sounds. Every week animal stories, rights and welfare in the mix. Step up, take action, we're giving animals a fix. Tales of Hope, raise your voice, make some noise. Change the game for every animal, girl and boy. One world, one fight, let's turn the page. A future for the voiceless, bring hope to center stage.
You are now directing efforts around farmed animal advocacy. Why are farmed animals still among the most legally unprotected beings on the planet?
Because people want to eat them.
That's a very, I think we humans are cruel up to a certain extent.
Yeah, it just, and then just, and it ties into our food policies. It ties into this idea that, if you are, being wealthy or, with different statuses or, whatever it may be, means eating more meat or more exotic meat or, so I think there's some, obviously there's cultural issues, but and this idea that, it's this weird thing. I think more and more people are caring about animals, but also the per capita meat consumption is going up. You don't get easy answers in terms of like, actually what is healthy, what is like, and I'm sure, all those questions persist of like, where do you get your protein? And, so like some misunderstanding about food and nutrition, which is all on purpose as well. So there's a lot of money in the food industry and the, animal agriculture industry. So I try not to get like too cynical into no. It's what it's a power and money issue on some level, but also it's it's an education issue. And some people too. I mean, I think in our distracted world and our very busy world, and a lot of people are just like trying to get through. And so to then, add on some other things, like, I don't want to think about that. I just want to go to the store and get my food and so I think we just have a lot of that. And, we're disconnected from the fact that we're part of nature, and you just get your shrink wrapped piece of meat at the store. And, so yeah, there's on and on.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I'm sorry to put you in this difficult situation.
No, yeah, it's just, because of course, we all want to figure out like, what's that switch, right? Like, what if we just show you what's happening? And it's like, no, or what if you just, met a pig, or what if you, like, what are the things that are going to like make that connection to be able to reduce that cruelty? And I think it's different for different people. I think, there's probably all sorts of like different theories of change, of when you're ready to change, and for what reasons, but, trying to figure it out.
Absolutely. We're still trying to figure it out. And you rightly said, I guess all of us, we can do up to a certain extent, we're doing our part of trying to bring the change, but yes, it does emotionally affect us. But I think we also need to draw a line that, we also have to be very realistic that this is what I can do and this is something that I can't change. I remember very well, not too long ago, my spiritual master made it was quite a big gathering, and in that gathering, he said one thing very specifically, because you can't change the world. I mean, if you look at it, even the saints who came down to this earth in human form, they didn't come to change. They just came here to align you that everything is within you, or whatever that spiritual reason was. But they didn't want it to change the world. They just wanted people to align. So for us also, I believe at the end of the day, it is more of aligning how much can be aligned as an individual and doing our
Yeah.
part.
Yeah. That's a beautiful way to think about it.
Absolutely. Now, how can policy realistically move us towards more ethical, sustainable farming or away from agriculture altogether?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely are some interesting policy things that happen, especially, again, especially in the United States, the agriculture um, industry has such a, strong lobby, in that, one thing is, the subsidies that we, even if there's not the demand for as much, meat or dairy or, then there's programs that step in terms of subsidizing that industry, where we're not subsidizing broccoli or what other things. um, and so and then we're looking at the U.S. Department of Agriculture wants to increase slaughter line speeds. So like one project that we have is trying to block that, because the faster the line speeds, right, just means more animals and then more water pollution and more air pollution and more impacts on society. So, I mean, those are just some small examples of, how we're trying to use policy to change kind of what's happening. And again, what we had talked about earlier is, how much is society pushing a change in policy, and then how much does policy kind of, reflect what's already the values of a society. So, and that can happen, on a town and city level. It can happen on a state level. It can happen on a national level. But again, I think like what you just mentioned, like that's a way to, get into more of an alignment, right? Like, how is it, if these are our values, and how, the vast majority of people would be like, do you love animals? Like, I love animals, right? And it's like, okay, if that is your value, then how do we have laws that better reflect those values?
Absolutely. That's such a nice way to put it forward. Anyways, now, what role do consumers play in influencing animal protection laws, even if they never set a foot in a courtroom?
Yeah, there's, consumer pressure can be really large. And so, it's one of those things of just remembering, if you just take your own self, obviously if you are reducing, your own consumption, you can see that kind of direct impact. But also, that like idea too of like, if you're like one drop of water in a bucket, it's like, but we need all the drops of water to like make that big bucket full. So, the more people that are caring about this, are talking about it, are working on it, are, reducing the number of animals that they're eating, that are thinking about if they really should be, giving their money and traveling, visiting the zoo, or, whatever it may be, that collectively, we do make a difference. I'm putting together a presentation. I'm talking to an organization about labeling, like food labels. And unfortunately, the labeling system isn't great. It's not the most, well regulated. And there is, some greenwashing or humane washing that is happening with some of these products. But the reason why they're doing it is because they do know that people care. So even if they aren't being completely honest about what free range means, or, farm fresh, or, whatever that they're saying, even if it might not, yeah, again, if it's, it might not be 100% honest, but they're doing it because they know that there is that part of humans that even if they are participating, there's some people that don't care, and there'll be people that, but I
They
think
do.
deep down, like most people actually do. And there are quite a few that, are, that are, or if even you look at like, the dolphin safe tuna, or this, turtle safe shrimp. It's kind of weird that it's like, okay, you're still eating this animal, but you want to protect this animal. It's still very weird, but it is. But those types of programs and those sorts of consumer labels show that there is, some desire to make sure that they're trying to do it in the best way.
Absolutely. You rightly mentioned a lot of things. You worked in animal sheltering and policy. What was one moment in the field that forever shifted how you view animals under human care?
Yeah, gosh, I don't know that there's necessarily one, because it's pretty intense working in that sort of environment, and the kind of things that I saw, um, and the situations that that we were in. But I would say what really shifted for me, like, and how I viewed animal sheltering before I worked in the system, versus now, is that I think that we would benefit our companion animals a lot more if we didn't shame people for needing to rehome animals. And I know that's probably a little bit controversial, I think it's really easy to say that, like, you should have your animal forever and you should do whatever you can, and you should be homeless if you can't find a place to live, if you have to move and you can't find a place to live, and we have all these like really restrictive housing issues, and you and your kids should just be in the car. And I don't know that that's realistic or like the right, and I think, and we really shame people for needing to rehome their animals. And I think if we were more compassionate about medical issues or families needing to move together, or if you really have, if you have a baby and you really have an animal that you feel like will actually like hurt your child, it's not good for anybody. Like that's not a safe and happy and, good situation. And sometimes you do have to move, and sometimes you cannot find a place. I mean, life just happens. And so, but the animals that are in that situation, if we could really foster them reaching out to their own network of friends and family and their own community, and then, your animal, your pet, your companion animal was able to go from one happy, safe home right into directly into another, and then you would still be happy to know that your dog or cat is still safe and happy and get pictures every once in a while or whatever. And then that cuts out that whole sheltering system in the middle of that. And then, it really like destigmatizes the situation. And if it's going to happen for dogs and cats anyways, it's going to happen. So we should embrace that it's happening and help, rather than make people feel like they're horrible people who should never have animals ever again and they don't care. And because it's not true. Like, there are just sometimes situations that force people into those, and they're heartbroken and devastated. But there's a way to make it easier for everybody. So,
You
welcome to my
rightly.
TED Talk.
No, absolutely. No, it was, because honestly, I believe the same thing, because I see on social media on a daily basis. In India, we have this as well. A lot of breeds get abandoned, or the parents, the pet parents want to rehome them, or like you rightly said, life happens. There are certain things which are beyond our control. But what I see on social media today, honestly, it hurts me at times. I sometimes do get intervene, and I, try and drill sense into people. At least the person is trying to rehome. That person is just not abandoning the companion, just going and
Right.
leaving it. So look at it rather in a positive manner and help. You
Right.
know, be positive. At least that person is just not leaving the kid on the streets, because I know there are a lot of cases that we see even in US. You get to see that just the companion is abandoned. But rather than abandoning, at least they're getting rehomed. So, instead of demoralizing the person and shaming him, and, the kind of curse that goes out, it's so hard. As it is, the
Yeah,
person is already going through a phase where they have to part with that fur family.
right.
It's
Yeah,
already heartbroken, because if you ask me, yes, we go through the same thing. I
yeah,
mean, for us also, when we think, even with the thought of separating from them kills us. But you rightly said, life happens. I mean, if I was to tell you the kind of things we have gone through, you would be surprised.
yeah.
I, uh, I mean, just so you won't believe it. When we got the first one home, we didn't realize that my mother was old and aging, and she was not very comfortable. Me and my wife then, I think it was almost a month, and then we had a lot of issues at home, and then we decided, okay, we'll move out of the home of my mother's place. Then my wife went down to her paternal place, and then over there we again have issues, and then finally we had to move out to a rented apartment. So for us, it's not been an easy journey. Yes, we are trying our best at every level, that we
Hmm.
don't want to part, but yes, life happens. We have to.
Yeah.
And today we realize we're so torn apart because both are my in-laws and my mother. They're old, they have a lot of health related issues, and then it becomes such a cumbersome task being split into 2 to 3 homes, trying
Hmm.
to take care and balance.
Right.
And plus, you don't want to give your pets up. I mean, you don't want to rehome them. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a task. Some of us, so far, touchwood, by the grace of God, we've able to live through with it. But yes, there are
Yeah.
others who have situations which they can't.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, and we're lucky to, have the houses that we have. We're lucky to be able to afford to be able to have our, dogs go to boarding when they need to, or to be able to afford the veterinary care, and it's like we're all just that close to like some major life thing happening that, all that goes away. And like, what if you don't have, you know, a family that you can go to? What if you don't have, any money for animal
The,
care? Or,
absolutely.
it's just, so I think, yeah, it's, I, I never in the 11 years that I was there, never once did somebody come in and say like, "Oh, the cat doesn't like match the couch anymore." Like, like nobody was flippant about it. Nobody was, it was always a very heartbreaking decision. And we tried very hard to, like, well, what if we, could help you with foster for a couple weeks, or what it, like, what are some different solutions that might be able to, what if we were able to give you, the free pet food for 6 months? Like, would that get you through, so there are a lot of community programs that we can do to really try to keep animals with their families. So I think, again, having that compassion to be able to have those conversations. And then ultimately, if they need to rehome them, then you get to step in and find, your animals the best new family.
Absolutely. It's such a wonderful way, when the community comes together and supports rather than, naming and shaming.
Yeah. I mean,
Anyways,
because you said that you have your rescue pets. I know my two cats and my dog were adopted from the Humane Society. So, and they're doing great. They have a great life.
I'll tell you, one of the rescues, rather, what we have, I paid for the rescue.
Uh-huh.
Because I mean, for us, because it was a new thing at that time, I still didn't know. Me and my wife, we just didn't know how this entire thing or this entire system works. And there was somebody who was just, you know, willing to abandon one of
Mm.
these fur babies that we have now with us. For, and I said, don't worry, I'll pay you even if you want, but don't abandon it. I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And And the third one that we have is just a newcomer. It's one of the indies that we have. I have adopted from my not adopted. It's basically rescued. They had driven a car over this little pup when she was just 4 months, and we, uh, fortunately, by the grace of God, she's healthy, fit, and fine. You were here. You must have heard her, making those noises just a while back. So now she is absolutely happy with us. I mean, touch wood, that's what we say. But I do still take care of her mother and the other two siblings at my mother's compound.
Oh,
I, I mean, this is something little that I just do my little part sort of thing.
yeah.
Now, uh, how do you navigate the emotional toll of working in space where systematic change can be very slow, especially when lives are at stake?
Yeah. Uh, I mean, just in terms of, kind of personally, I spend a lot of time outside with my dog Pickles. Lots of hikes, lots of just, kind of just, again, like real, being connected to nature, trying to keep everything in perspective, trying to understand you can only do what you can do. But that's, again, like why I love the work that we're doing is that, um, again, the way that Delcy and I look at it is kind of this multiplier effect, right? So it's not just the work that we're doing, but by teaching students and being part of an educational system, just knowing that there are more out there and community. I mean, it's meeting people like you and having, friends and colleagues. Um, then, so we work a lot on networking. We do a lot of kind of community events because then you don't feel alone. And it's, and then you, of course, there are lots of people in my life that don't feel and act the same way that I do. But when you are able to be in a community of people that reflect that side of your values and who you are, it's just very comfortable and it's very nice to just kind of be able to be in that community. So that is really what kind of keeps me going. Other people
Oh,
trying to.
no, I mean, we have, you see, I mean, I think across the world we have, uh, as they say, your five fingers can never be alike. So, five people can never be alike. So it's just, as you rightly said, building the community and having that support system really works. I think it takes the emotional toll out of the place.
Yeah, yeah. And then as much as we, again, we work a lot on, the farmed animal issues, which are tough, and you see some really horrible things, but then we always make sure that we go visit. We have a few really great farm sanctuaries out here in Vermont. So then we get to go hang out with happy animals who have been rescued. So that's always nice too.
Absolutely. Now, what does animal liberation mean to you today? And how does that vision differ from traditional animal welfare?
Yeah, what I like to say is like animal welfare is really the large umbrella, so it's everyone is trying to make or everyone in this movement that are caring about animals, like they're all trying to improve, the lives of animals. And we can call that animal welfare, animal protection. And then kind of the animal rights, animal liberation is like one part of that. And they're not mutually exclusive. We're not fighting against each other. I mean, there's different ways up the mountain. And sometimes you need to like swerve a little this way to make sure that, that you can keep going, right? Because I think for our world and our society, if we expect that you're going to be at, base camp and you're going to get to the top of Everest and there's nothing else in between, I don't think that we're going to make it. um,
True.
like we need to go to base camp 2 and then to base camp 3 and then, adjust and reacclimate and, and then strategize if weather changes or whatever like of all these things. And it's like, do we, is the message that, pigs aren't here on this earth for us to just use however we want to. Like, yes, and I think we should keep saying that message and all those things. But we're not going to get there overnight. And so what can we do along the way to improve the conditions that they're in, to stop or slow the demand of what they, the way that they're living, because I think sometimes I get frustrated within the movement that we really focus on the number of animals who have died or who are killed instead of measuring the suffering, because we're all going to die, and that's
Yes.
how I end all my classes. It's very enlightening. So if we count death, it's like, but we're like, everybody's going to die. So I don't know, like, how counting the number of beings that are dying. I mean, part of it is we're bringing all these animals into existence just to kill them. But I think in some ways, if we really focus on who is suffering and why, if we can reduce the suffering, that is going to be more impactful than I think just looking at the numbers of who dies.
That's such an important message you've sent out, honestly. Because it's just looking at a brighter side where we say, which you rightly said, if we can reduce their pain and their suffering even a bit, I think, that's like a step towards what we're looking at, a bigger goal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, and again, it's always like putting yourself in their shoes or their hooves or whatever, right? Like, I mean, to turn a blind eye and say, but wait, no, we can't help you now. We're not giving you water now. We're not giving you more space now. We're not, because we think you should be free. And so we're not going to do anything to help you in the moment. If you were sitting in, trapped in some little, it'd be like, well, the water would be really nice though, while you're doing that in the meantime.
absolutely. It's such an important thing. It is these small, I think these are the baby steps that we all need to take, even like you rightly said, even just, providing water at a time that is needed because of the suffering that they're going through. I mean, just to take you further on this, because in India, we do have a lot of, street animals or street companion souls, which are overlooked, ignored. But yes, there are a lot of people I know that, just by providing water, providing food, the little that they do is you are trying to reduce their pain and suffering rather than this poor soul going hunting for food and, scavenging. Let's talk about the street dogs. But there are so many feeders across the country who try and make sure that at least, if not 2 decent square meals for these kids, at least 1 good proper meal is provided, and they make sure that the water is there for them so they don't need to go looking. So, at least that small effort counts a lot.
Yes.
It's not like you're waiting for somebody else to do it. You're doing whatever little part you can. So that's also, I look at it, that's so much better than not doing anything.
Right. Yeah. If everybody just did a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Vermont law received a major gift to expand its animal law programs. What will this funding allow you to do that wasn't possible before?
Yeah, I mean, it was great to get that kind of star of approval of what we're doing, and allows us to continue, our farmed animal advocacy clinic that we're, really focusing on, those real world issues, working on real world issues and getting students that experiential learning. And we kind of, in addition to what we were already doing, we have some additional funds for scholarships, which is great because, that is, we definitely understand and we want to make sure that we're really providing a really good education that then, allows people to go into a career path, but don't want to, burden them with getting that education. So the scholarships are very helpful. And then the schools also, and then the funding also supported our Center for Agriculture and Food Systems. And again, like we work a lot, together on a lot of issues. And then, the school's also going to be launching an aquaculture program. And so again, just, addressing all those, the sea life that we're impacting. And because aquaculture, kind of the fish farming, octopus farming, all these sorts of things, obviously horrible for the animals that are being raised, horrible for the environment. As it's a growing industry, we're trying to get ahead of it. So like what are things that we can, do and get in place, to try to really stop things before they get, moving forward. So that's a new initiative that the school is launching too.
Wonderful. I'm going to connect you to somebody with the, connected to the
Okay.
aquaculture in India and see. I mean, she runs an NGO, and see if something can, you guys can work together on.
Yeah, fantastic.
Perfect. Now, if you could look 20 years into the future, what legal rights or protection do you hope animals will finally have?
Of course, all of them. But realistically, I do think that a lot of the companion animal issues are kind of the gateway into getting more protections for animals and further animals, because as we do think of them as like our fur kids or fur babies or part of the family, we have the most, well, besides the food that people are eating, they don't really think of them as like interacting with animals, but there's that interaction, and then the interactions that we have with our companion animals are the ones that most people have, and they do, they see when they're joyful, they see when they're upset, they see, and so, and there are, the way that the legal system is set up is that it really kind of reinforces things that are already there. And so, but there are a lot, we're bringing a lot more cases. We're seeing a lot of changes more on the companion animal side in terms of recognizing that we can't just, I mean, we can, but like they're property under the law, right? So under the law, your dog is like legally protected like your chair. And when something bad happens to your animal, whether it's through veterinary malpractice or your neighbor like purposely runs them over or any of those things, it's okay, but here's your $50 to get another dog, which is not, that doesn't, obviously reflect the relationship that we have with animals. And so, more and more they're getting included in, domestic violence, restraining orders. Divorce lawyers are now understanding that, hey, like maybe we need to look at like the custody of the companion animals a little bit differently than like who gets the painting and who gets the dresser. We're seeing in the companion animal context, a different way. Maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be, there's papers and papers and papers galore that you could read from all the different perspectives of what should be next. But, I think some sort of, like a guardian type relationship where it's different than, a piece of furniture, not necessarily like a child or another person, but there's something else. And we can create that. We can have a system that reflects that relationship too. So I see that. And then I do think we're at a breaking point in terms of having to do something with the industrial animal agriculture. I mean, with the impact on the environment, the number of animals that we're raising. What scares me a little bit is not wanting to go into like the sort of system that we're seeing, like that pig skyscraper in China. Have you seen that? Where that's like 26-story or whatever, 7-story, raising $1.2 million or 1.2 million pigs in a concrete building. It scares me that like I don't want it to go like, well, see, look, we can then collect all the methane. We don't have water runoff. We don't have, but I think that would be a scary direction, and that's a little concerning. But I do think like we're at a point where we need to do something different with our food systems.
Absolutely. Now, coming to my last question. What's your message to a young person listening right now who wants to be the voice for animals but doesn't know where to begin?
Yeah, so as a mom, it's been, it's great being around a lot of young people, and there's so many things they can do. And I have a couple books here too, like Making Kind Choices, and even like The Parent's Guide to Climate Revolution. So there's, so many things in terms of just day-to-day life, and again, just being more conscious of what we're buying, where we're buying it from. And it goes to our food, it goes to the cars we're driving or bikes we're riding, the clothes we're buying, the electronics we have. It's just, there's a lot of things to worry about. So I think being a conscious consumer is helpful. Finding your people. So, if you don't have a club, an animal rights club or a vegetarian club or, something that you care about, Save the Sea Turtles Club, whatever it is that you're interested in. If there's not already people that are doing it, be the one that starts the group. And then, you can have that power of other people that can also like write postcards or, make your t-shirts, wear them proudly. Look at where you do have influence, like if you're at a school, what we see a lot is that, the U.S. Department of Agriculture is requiring that schools serve dairy milk at all their lunches. And at most of the places, in most of the schools these days, kids go through with their lunch, they put the carton of milk on their tray, they walk over and they dump it in the garbage. And so again, that's wasteful on so many levels. But like if you're seeing something like that as a student, raise that with your administration, raise that with the school lunch program and be like, how can we fix this? And if you need more plant-based foods, at your school or where you work or at your local hospital, there's a lot of different organizations that are working to make all these programs more plant-forward. You can volunteer at an animal shelter or an animal sanctuary. Or you can convince your parents to let you foster kittens, and that's fun. So, I think just follow your heart. And there's a lot of ways to get involved, and then a lot of adults who will be happy to help you, your volunteer efforts or to find a career path. And everyone can reach out to us at Vermont Law and Graduate School at our Animal Law and Policy program. Our favorite thing to do is to talk with people who want to help animals and make those connections. And whether you work and study with us, that's great. And if not, we're still on your team.
Absolutely. Now, coming to the last section, which I normally leave, I call it the open mic. I leave it to the guest to, probably a pet project that they're working or if they want to make a funds appeal, I leave it open basically for the guest to speak their heart out. So this is your floor at this point.
Okay, well, I feel like I've been like sharing a lot. And that's really, I think that just the message is that we're here as a resource. If you're interested in taking any of our classes, you can reach out. And if you have ideas of different ways that we can, help support other people on this journey, that's great. We're on LinkedIn. We go to conferences. We love speaking at conferences. And we have, and we love having students have the opportunity to meet with others as well. So we do, webinars and different things. So we know we have a lot of students that are interested in hearing voices from all around the world of, people, what they're working on and how to connect. So, yeah. And I just really appreciate being able to chat and share my crazy ideas and things. And appreciate this conversation.
Laura, thank you very much for taking the time from your busy schedule to be on this show. I really thank you so much.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it and really liked meeting you.